Good morning or good evening, and welcome to another interview of Inside Conversations. I'm your host, Spiros, and today we talk about the role of emotional intelligence in leadership, and particularly in the software engineering field. And to dissect this topic, we have Alexander Lazarov here, who is a senior engineering manager at Lego. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you, Spiros. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Nice. So today we will talk about the importance of emotional intelligence for effective leadership in the tech industry with practical insights and personal experiences. Before we begin, though, I want to express how much of a pleasure it is to have Alex here. Alex and I go way back. We first met at 2012 actually when we both started working in a startup, and then we both moved to another company. But I think it was our shared interest in meditation, mindfulness, music, philosophy, and all the other deep conversations we had back then that really connected us. And Alex is not only a brilliant software engineer leader, but he's also been a coaching client of mine. And I have to say, Alex, that I always enjoy the sessions and the conversations with you. And because they are not only helpful to you, as you have said, but I also understand aspects of myself by talking to you. And that's why I wanted to have you here and talk about this topic. So thank you for all the insights that you have provided me all this time, and thank you for being here today.
Fantastic. Thank you, Spiros. It's great. Sounds great.
Yeah. Let's dive in. Okay, we will start exploring the importance of emotional intelligence, as I mentioned, in leadership within this dynamic world of software engineering. So, in order for our listeners to get to know you better, can you share a bit about your journey and how you came to your current role in the software engineering field?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So my journey has started actually as a software engineer way back. That was I could even say that I started as a software engineer that I like to think when I was 15 years old, when I really literally picked up a book that my mom had, and I read it. And actually, there was a computer at home at that time that my mom was studying and working with and about to prepare for classes. And then since then, it became a passion of mine. So software engineering has been something that I really, really enjoyed doing uh, for um, for different reasons. One being like my first customer, my sister, with an application that I wrote in Pascal. But also going forward with my in my life, actually going into school, studying computer science, and then going for different startups, and that's where I met you, Spiros, in one of them, and then later on being in the travel industry because I absolutely love traveling, and it was a great fit for me to work in a software engineering field as an engineer, developer, backend integrations developer in at the company where we both worked at, and going forward from there, basically more things became more interesting. So as I'm there doing my thing as an engineer, being happy with the tasks that I have, slowly started working more together with the team. My leader and my manager at the time was also noticing that, so I was organizing. Then I was over the years we started talking about maybe going for becoming a team leader, which worked out over a couple of years of mentorship. And then for me it felt almost naturally that okay, now maybe the next step I want to try out. And I say try is because I wasn't sure what the management part of this would be, but I stepped in it, and then I started figuring out what would that really mean for my life, my work life, and career. And step by step, by I think doing the necessary things for the job and the people that are around me, helping them help the business that I'm currently working on or working in with the rest of my teams. This becoming a senior engineering manager wasn't really something that I was aspiring to. I was aspiring to get the job done, and then I would say this is how it happened. This is how I ended up here. Where with what I'm doing right now.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, nice. Thank you for sharing that. So, uh, diving into the emotional intelligence, okay, I think the first thing
mm,
we need to do is to kind
yeah,
of define what emotional intelligence is. And I know a lot of people explaining different ways, but I would like to hear your perspective on it.
yeah. That's great. Thank you. I mean, this is very. If you go online and read what emotional intelligence really means, there is a definition of that. There's an official definition. There's one that you could probably see and hear from not from people in leadership, but certified um, professionals. Then
Mm,
the way I understand emotional intelligence is probably I would explain it in a way that where was it most helpful for me. So my perspective is that um, it is about being self-aware to begin with, self-aware, and that you can deep dive in what self-awareness really means on the emotional side. So aware of your emotions, where do you feel them in your body, what would they mean, why are they there. Then you could talk about building emotionally intelligent around really aware of your thoughts, how you react, how you do things, because a lot of the things that we do actually on a daily basis is actually automatic, and it's based on habits. So being more, let's say, if your emotional intelligence is at level, let's say, 1, how would it be different when it goes to number 10, if that's a scale?
mm,
It would mean to me that I'm in better control of my life in general. I'm in better control of my, meaning control of my emotions, control of my mindset, my thoughts, reactions, and then sometimes understanding that you are outside, you have to go outside of that a little bit, because you may feel one way, but the environment needs something else from you. So being able to navigate space where there is conflict, navigate space that requires something from your role and not from you as an individual, this would uh, this would be going more from level 1 to level 10. I think that's how I would describe it. I mean, I
mm.
think maybe there's a lot of questions you may be asking me right now because I said a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I have plenty of questions, but
yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah,
gonna
yeah.
try to ask you one by one. But you mentioned conflict, and I want to talk about this, but a little bit
Yeah,
later, perhaps,
sure. Hmm.
because that's I find conflict fascinating. Uh,
Mm.
well, to try to solve it at least, not happening, but I think it's natural. So let's keep it for a little bit later, okay? What I'm interested to find out from you is how important do you believe is the emotional intelligence skills in the software engineering field, and especially from leaders?
So the caveat here, oh, not the caveat, sorry, the emphasis here is on the software engineering, right? Is that what you want to
Yes,
make sure
yes,
that we
yes,
talk about? Yeah, yeah. So we agree that the emotional intelligence thing is very important. Thing the emotional intelligence is very important for leaders in general, but also for everybody. I think this is something that people should be just aware of, that it exists as a field of exploration and exploring yourself, and it should work on that. It's only because it's gonna make your life that much more um, satisfying, and maybe make you more happy over time. And then with the emphasis on in software engineering, it's something that I think, first of all, the context switch, the the fast-paced environment. Software engineering at the moment is very fast-paced business, and it's everywhere. There is software in absolutely everything. The other day I read about how a great tomato would require software to be great these days. It's everywhere, and we are expanding right now. We are um, in an era where everybody has a little bit of understanding what software means and how it's probably done. And software engineering companies, or parts of companies that really want to excel, they actually need to use tech to be able to do that. When that emphasis is put there, there's a lot of pressure. and with the pressure come a lot of different conversations you probably would be avoiding if you were in a different type of industry. So I think in the software engineering field, emotional intelligence is very, very crucial because in this field, it's fast paced. People are perhaps under a lot of pressure. We hear a lot about burnouts. How do we work with that? So it's not that way. I mean, I think the fast pacedness of things would also mean that if we want that to change, it will come from the people who are working in this. So I would say currently the perhaps the level of emotional intelligence we want to be at, it's not there, um, because we are seeing all of these effects of people going on sick leaves. It's just uprising, and it's in people going on burnouts, and that means that probably we need more attention there.
Yeah, yeah. I I like how you framed about the emotional intelligence for everybody
Mm.
and bring satisfaction and happiness, more happiness, and how particularly it's important in software engineering field because of the fast-paced environment and all the pressure and all the stuff. Um, and one thing, I think the fast-paced environment and the pressure also brings the conflict that you mentioned before, but I think it also needs some more active listening and listening
Yeah,
also to the emotions of other people to understand
yeah,
whether they are actually pressed or not,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
and how they feel through this fast-pacing environment. But again, let's keep this a little
yeah,
bit for later. Um, what I would like to ask you is to share something about yourself, how you how you develop your self awareness, how you manage your own
yeah,
emotions, and especially in fast paced environment, the one that you
yeah,
work and the pressure that you may have as a leader of the teams there.
yeah. That's a great question. How do I do it? No, I'm basically stalling here to actually think about it a little bit, but it's interesting. I have many different things going on. I could talk about the practices that I do um,
Yeah.
on a day to day. On a day to day, it's since I don't really sit down for to meditate maybe for 5-10 minutes anymore. That often, what I like to do is take these mindfulness minutes. For example, I'm biking to work, or I'm walking in the corridor, going somewhere to a meeting room. Instead of often trying to think of the meeting or trying to think of the next thing, I'm trying to think of and ask myself some questions. So how am I feeling right now? Just like that. Sometimes there's no answer, and then you might ask, so why is there no answer? Is this a new feeling? Then it could go a little bit like that, but you have to also. I'm also time boxing it, so it's not like I'm doing this for hours on end, but often during the day. This means that to me that I'm starting to develop a pathway in my brain here where I'm starting to become more aware of how I feel. So my subconsciousness or my brain or my body basically will start telling me, "Oh, I didn't have an answer for you earlier, but here's an answer now." And I'm trying to build that habit. So through habits is one of the ways to do it. Asking myself questions. I like to journal as well. So the a habit of journaling, and it's not every day that I journal, but when I do it's because I need it. And maybe that's actually another thing that we probably should be doing more, should be doing it more often, so I don't have to do it when I need it. But why do I need such thing? It's because there is a feeling that I started getting, and that there's some sort of unresolved thing inside of me. And this is often because, again, the fast pacedness of things. Maybe I switch context way too often during the day. I don't get the whole context. I miss something, but I have a feeling that there's something there. So writing during the day is another one. So journaling about how I feel and what I think. It's one thing during the night, in the nighttime. But during the day, I also write notes about what happened or what do I believe happened, and so they can later verify it because I don't trust my memory. I basically started realizing that nope, I'm not gonna trust my memory. I'll trust my emotions, and then I'll trust the notes that I take. Because when it's all in one place in my head and my body, it's actually, I think it's a bit more dangerous than actually writing it down and then okay, here's how I felt about it. But
Mm.
you also asked about an example, right? So let's
Yeah.
so what all the things that I said, there's these habits and there's things that I do, which is basically asking myself questions and writing. um I have received some bad news at work today. Not today, sorry, recently. I just meant to say recently. And those news were delivered in a conversation, one-on-one conversation, and um, it's a time boxed period of time. It's half an hour, so we had a discussion there around this. But immediately after that conversation, I had another conversation, which was very unrelated to that previous conversation in any way. So for me to not go into the next conversation and actually bring all of that what was discussed in the previous, I had to take a mental step back and just sort of think, okay, this is I'm feeling this now. I am accepting the fact that I feel this, but I cannot really deal with it right now. There is no option for because I know what environment is around me. I have to hold this off. And I then said, after that meeting, then I'll go for a walk and then I'll figure it out. Then I'll resolve it later. Couple of minutes in the new conversation, I was completely into the new context. I remember that because it was very recent experience that I had it. And then after that, I was able to go out and actually go for a walk and then really think through the conversation before that one. So all of the conversations so far have gone well, but it took me that mental space in between. And I'm saying this only because I have examples where I would walk into the next meeting with the feeling from the previous one. Whether it was happy or unhappy, it actually doesn't matter. Could go either way. If you go too happy in a
Yeah.
meeting that's about a serious conversation, it's also not going to be great. So you have to
Mm.
understand the environment and what you are walking into. What is it the reason that you are going into the next conversation? Be very aware of the goals of that.
Yeah, I really like it. I really like what you just said, and basically, I can resonate with a lot of stuff that you mentioned,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
journaling or taking some time to ask yourself questions. And but I've also find this very, very useful that you mentioned now in the end. So sometimes I'm upset here at work, or happy, as you said, and then I have a coaching
Yeah,
session or a training, in 5 minutes. What do I do?
yeah,
And I think I do something similar like you. So I sit down, and for 3 minutes, I I focus on my body, and I just want to see what's going on with me. What do I
yeah.
feel right now?
Hmm.
And then I focus on my breath that connects me with the present moment and try to resolve and to dissolve all these
Yeah,
emotions that I have. So I go into the next meeting or session or training
yeah,
with a fresh mind, with a to have this mental break.
yes,
No, not
yeah,
mental break. What's it called? To just have
yeah,
a break from what happened just
yes,
before. And
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
found
yeah,
that very, very useful. And or you only need like 1, 2 minutes. You don't have to do it for 30 minutes or so. I think one, two
yeah.
minutes is enough. But we just have to remind ourselves to do it, because
Mm.
else we may end up going to a serious meeting, having a very happy mentality that will not resonate with the emotions of that meeting, or the other way around, as you said.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
that's interesting. And
Do
another
Do you
thing
have
that
any examples?
sorry,
I'm just curious if you had any examples of something like that recently.
I have plenty of
What happened?
examples. For
Yeah.
example, Last evening I had a session, an evening session, but I had an argument with my son, and I was very angry with him.
I got it.
So
Yeah.
I had to come here in the room 5 minutes earlier and just focus on this feeling, dissolve it, and actually see how I'm feeling at that moment.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the visualization I'm doing is that I put all of my thoughts, feelings, and everything in a chest, in a box, and I'm
Okay.
gonna deal with them after this meeting, after this
There
training,
you go.
after this
Yeah.
thing that I have to do, and then I can open
Yeah.
it and just take all my thoughts and feelings back to in myself
Yeah.
and just work with them.
Yeah.
But you mentioned one word that I really like, the acceptance. At some point you said acceptance, and
Yeah.
in the beginning you said that the first step is the self-awareness. Okay, and there is a framework that I'm working in coaching mainly, but it starts with awareness, and after that it's the acceptance. It's to accept the situation. It's to accept
Right.
how we are right now based on our past. Okay, because the past
Yeah.
kind of defines us. But I'm
Yes.
not talking about passively accept the situation. Oh my
Yeah.
God, this is how my life is, but to actively accept it. And the active goes to the next step, the action, the conscious action. Because now that we have that, now that
Yes.
we are aware of something and that we have accepted the situation, we can actually consciously do something about it. Which
Yeah.
goes to, I guess, to management, to self-management, managing our emotions in the emotional
Yeah.
intelligence skills.
Yeah. I like what you said
Um,
there. I really like that. I mean, this active acceptance. I remember that. Yeah. That's
I
actually
th-
really good.
yeah, I think it's very important because a lot of times I've seen it from myself, first of all, but also from clients. A lot of people
Mm.
don't really want to accept the situation that they are angry. They don't really want to accept the situation that something has happened to them. But the problem with this is that when we try to push this away, it's like throwing gasoline into the fire. We
Yeah.
just have to accept this part of ourselves because if you think about it, it's kind of a defense mechanism. This part of
Yeah.
ourselves tries to keep us safe from something.
Yeah.
And I think that that's also how the brain has been evolved, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
really believe in this three brain model. Now that we're talking about emotional intelligence,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
I need
How
to
do you say that?
mention this.
Mm-hmm.
So this three brain model mentions that it's actually theory from 73 or something. That first of all, it was the survival brain that was developed, and it's all about
Yeah.
instincts. So when you put your hand on fire, you just take it away.
Yeah.
The next brain that it was evolved is the emotional brain. It's about and this is where the emotions and feelings and beliefs and values are stored. And after that, it's the logical brain, the cortex. So when we get an information from the environment or from inside ourselves, the message from the core of the brain tries to um, to to, to reach the whole brain, but
Mm-hmm.
when it goes to the emotional brain and it seems that this information threatens one of our values or beliefs or something like that, then we enter into the fight or flight mode. And the information stops there. It does not
No.
go to the logical brain. And
No.
if
No.
you have
No.
noticed, when you are into this fight or flight mode, when you are angry or do want to do something about the situation right there,
Yeah.
after a couple of hours, when everything has subsided and the information has gone into your logical brain, you can actually say, yeah, I mean, why did I act like that? That was
Yeah.
stupid. I mean, it does not make
Yeah.
any sense at all. But
That's
it's how we are built, right? I mean, this is the defense mechanism that we have. And the
yeah.
emotions are stronger sometimes than the logical part. But I think
Yeah.
we have the capacity as humans to actually create the skills to manage the emotions, to become aware of them and then manage them.
I
What are your thoughts?
I quite like that comparison there, and the way you explain it, and the theory that you explained. Um, But you say, I like the word mechanism that you said there, because the word mechanism actually, to me, it explains that, when you have a mechanism, and it's like I hear capability, I hear something is going on, something that can travel, something that can, there's some motion. And I think, or a mechanism of several different parts, and things can actually act. There's an action a possibility of action. But what I'm thinking here is that it's probably, since we have it as humans, we just need to exercise that well. So it's like another type of muscle. So we need to
Oh,
basically be exercising that part of our system, that mechanism. We have a mechanism for running, for walking, for seeing. We have different mechanisms. That's another mechanism. And I think, just for a second here, if I zoom out from this our lifespan, and I zoom out and look at maybe 400 years time span, do you think we are, as humans right now in our society, exercising that mechanism well? Has it been done differently in the past? Has it been done differently in the time of around 2,000 years ago, or 3,000, with Seneca and the rest of people that were lived in that sort of period? How did they exercise that mechanism? I think, and basically, I'm also trying to answer it here and say, I think our society right now, and the way we ourselves, now we are 30, 40 years, 50 years old, we have been raised in one certain way. Maybe that mechanism, it was exercised in a way that's not actually helpful to us at this moment. So we all need to go through the realization that as you grow as a human, you also have to exercise all your mechanisms to continue to do that, and that's one of them.
definitely.
That, wow,
First
I
of all,
expanded a lot on one word mechanism there. That was the whole question.
well, you're a software engineer, right?
Yeah.
uh, I think emotional intelligence and managing the emotions and integrate them with our thinking part and
Hmm.
making better decisions is a skill. It's not something that we are born with or not. I think it's a
Yeah,
skill, and the more we
exactly.
practice it, the more we become, let's say, uncomfortable, because that's where the growth happens. The more pathways, I guess, because you used that word before, we
Yeah,
create in our brain,
yeah,
and then it's much easier for us to
yeah.
do it again, and to it becomes a habit basically. It
Yep.
becomes another mechanism, defense mechanism, or call it whatever you like it, another
Hmm.
mechanism that we can use it for our own benefit and for the other people.
I think here I just want to open a small bracket. It's so hard. This thing what you just talked about, it's easy to talk about. Man, it's just a couple of sentences. This process, it's just so hard. Like, yeah, it's gonna be painful. No, no, you don't exactly know what that would mean to you. And I'm talking about myself basically right now. I'm just
Mm.
saying, I knew things are gonna be hard. I knew I wanted to change. Great, let's go. Oh my God, it's all this energy. And then you're just hit left and right. And then you're like, what? Why am I doing this to myself? Trust the process. That's what I'm
Eh,
saying myself. That's what I'm saying myself to myself.
yeah. Trust the process. I really like this. I really like this. So
Yeah.
now that you mentioned that it's not easy, I think it's time to go back to the conflict that we mentioned before, because
Okay.
I think conflict is very, very uncomfortable, and especially
Oh,
not only in private life that we try to avoid it, but especially in the workplace.
yeah.
So I want to ask you how you are using the emotional intelligence to address and resolve conflicts within your team, or in general in your work.
So I the way I do it actually is I try to attach the conversation to something, to core values. And maybe this is just there's a lot to unpack. So a conflict, you also need to identify what the conflict is. Where is it? but I'm trying to also extrapolate here the process as we're going along.
Yeah.
Uh,
Please do.
I it's a conflict is uh, conflict of interest or a different opinion on the same thing. So someone want to maybe be doing one thing one way or maybe doing something completely different. And then there's another one which is about we're avoiding conflict here, which is a conflict that I can also see by the yeah beating around the bush on a lot of things basically, and not actually doing the actual conversation that needs to happen, just avoiding that conversation. And sometimes it's just confronting doing the conflict actively for the sake of doing it sometimes. So in those cases, and depends on the person, sometimes they do it for um, you know debating, sometimes do it for real reasons that comes from a different core value of theirs, and sometimes they will just avoid it because it doesn't really resonate with their values. So when I'm in a room where that is happening, and I can see it happening either in one of my teams or in a more senior leadership conversation, which is actually not always the case because as I noticed, senior leadership tends to be more and more emotionally intelligent going upwards in a hierarchy. I hope that's the case for your organization, whatever that is, because if it's not, it's way more difficult than you might think. Uh, when that happens, there is a sense that I'm getting, which is like I need to do something here. It's like this is the first thing, and I'm saying this first as I'm not part of the conflict, but I need to get into the conflict. I need to get into the conversation of where the conflict is. Often, the things that they're talking about are very idealistic. That's where you could have a lot of, because they're in there the conflict comes from values of the people who are discussing this, and that's where I would ask questions around, but what should we do first, and what is the logical thing to do, or but what are things that we actually agree on here are. So when I see that we are disagreeing and we need to move forward, and the reason we need to move forward is because at the end of this conversation tomorrow there's things happening and we need to have a decision. So what are the things we agree on is questions that I would ask, because I want to bring them back into the things that they value as the same way on the other side.
Mm.
And if there's, for example, a short-term and a long-term solution here, is there anything from this conversation we can park for later and only focus on the most important thing? And as people start asking themselves those questions, it's very often that we reach to some sort of conclusion. And maybe if we don't, at least the conclusion could be, but we need to talk about it later because there's more important things. And then we give people time to cool off, people time to rethink, and maybe sometimes, I mean, it happens so that several times we need to park this conversation right now. Let's have it later, and then put a time in the calendar or do one-on-ones. I think sometimes it's also about, hey, you know what? It's okay. I understand that we don't agree here, and we do have the time to come to a conclusion. So let's do something else. But for me, in those conflicts, is to try to find with questions an action point and what they actually agree on. And I'm not sure how much that tells you. I'm not, but I'm curious to hear your feedback on this because I was just basically in my head up until now going through several cases and several situations and then trying to extrapolate the mechanism behind it.
Yeah. Um, I agree with what you said. I agree with
Yeah.
the core values and the common values, or to focus on the shared goal. It's the way to go.
Yeah.
Um, what I wanted to mention is, so the process that I'm using for myself. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I think you mentioned the process that you are doing for your team when you see a conflict.
Mm-hmm.
I want to mention the process that I'm using for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think the first thing I'm doing is to have a pause. To take a pause, to have a break, to just stop for a moment and just
Yeah.
focus on my feelings. Going back to what we were talking before,
Yeah.
what I'm feeling exactly and why, what really triggered me in what the other person said. And usually it's what you
Yeah.
said. It's a conflict of some values or some beliefs that triggers me. And then I'm trying to look at the facts, to look at the logical side of it. And especially, in software development, in the fast-paced environments, you need to see the facts and, the roadmap to see what needs to
Yeah.
happen next.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
leave your emotions aside for a moment, to bracket them and maybe park them, as you said, to talk about them later. And only then I can decide and act on it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I'm talking about the facts, I think I'm also talking, not I'm think, I'm sure I'm also talking about, this shared goal. What is the goal of the team or of the two people that have the conflict? What is the
Yeah.
goal of them? And just focus on this at the moment. If that
Yeah.
if that needs an immediate action, okay. And after the event, after what really happens, we can talk about this again, and maybe the goal may change, because we live in an agile world. We need to be
It
flexible.
moves fast. Yep.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
if we need to take an action now, we need to have in mind the common goal, and the shared values that we have as a team. I
Yeah.
think I think I think what you mentioned is really valuable. And yeah, it only starts with the common values and the common goal.
The common
That's
values.
where we
Yeah.
need to focus.
It's very difficult
Okay.
in an organization that is focused on delivering value through software, especially if it's starting new and trying to get established, because then someone has to sit down and agree on the goals, agree on the values, agree on the purpose, agree on the mission, the vision. And as much as it sounds easy on agreeing on a sentence that says we are here to provide value to our customers because are the they're the ones who we serve and will do anything to satisfy our customers. That can translate to different people differently. And that's when you get into interpretations. But I thought we were doing this and I thought we were doing that. Then to what level of detail do you would like to have your roadmap on for the next year? Because you know it's going to change. But then you still have to have it in order to be able to have this conversation. So it's important to actually bring frames around where you can have conversations. And this would come from leadership. So in my role, I am hoping that I'm doing what I can, and I know I do what I can, but I hope it's helping. Is that I'm trying to bring this clarity of how does the vision project into what we should be doing, and when our product managers around us talk about here's the concrete things we need as capabilities to our customers, then I'm able to provide a frame of okay how we can actually do it and these conversations to happen in the team. I'm not going to be the one saying what to do and how to do it, but I'll be at least the one supporting the team with the frames needed to be able to have the conversations where they have momentum. So they're agile. For you to be agile, you also need to be able to have boundaries where you agree on things like sprint goals or agree on a bigger roadmap and agree on actual very concrete things you might put on a very waterfally roadmap, but you are still agile, you're still maybe changing things over time. But as you do it, there is one full step, agreed upon step from the whole team towards that
Mm,
direction. Yeah.
yeah, interesting. And
And so sorry, and if you have a good frame enough, in a perfect world, conflict shouldn't exist, right? But of course it does, because nothing's
yeah,
perfect, nothing's ever done, and you just keep on going, and you just try to minimize you minimize the risk of conflict as much as you can.
yeah, yeah. But I think conflict is a natural thing because everyone is unique. I mean, you can go
Yeah,
out with a friend of yours and you want to drink a bottle of red wine and he wants to drink white wine. So well, obviously this is
I
a
got it.
small
Yes,
conflict.
yeah,
But
yeah,
when it comes to more more important things about you and the other person or the team, then the conflict is stronger. But that's why we can develop skills like the emotional intelligence, conflict resolution. There are processes there that we can develop in order to avoid the conflict. But I think it's important to see conflict as a way to move forward, to develop
Yeah, yeah.
ourselves, to learn
Agree.
from mistakes or
Yeah,
from what really happens in order to evolve and grow.
yeah. No, absolutely agree. You see, I'll give you an example. If I agree on everything with my peers and the people that I work with on a daily basis, I think something's wrong. I actually believe that. I actually believe that. It's in the same vein that what you just talked about. I think if, but we need to walk into this knowing that, basically saying, I need to be sparring with you more often on things that we don't agree on in order to come to the conclusion of what we need to be doing. If we all believe the same things, we are running towards the cliff.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And
good thinking.
we actively provide sorry um, we I myself, I can only speak about myself. I actively seek um, discussions, and when I'm looking about how to create a team, a very diverse team is what would be providing just also the most value, because there is a lot of ideas, different ideas, a lot of conflict will happen from there. But if you frame the conversations well, it will be a healthy discussion versus conflict.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's very important to have a diverse team that brings obviously a lot of conflict, but
Yep.
also a lot
Yeah.
of innovative and new ideas
Exactly.
when you frame everything, not everything, well, most of the stuff at least, in a way that, yeah, and having the common goal and values that we mentioned before in mind. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really like the fact that you went a little bit to the agile environment and everything, but I'm aware of the time, and I know we don't really have a lot of time yet.
That's true. That's
So
true.
maybe we can continue this conversation another time. Um,
Absolutely. I'm very happy to. This is it's very interesting talking about this.
yeah, 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 yeah. I really like the conversation that we just had, and as I said, all the conversations we have, and I always take something from you, and uh, I like it because it's another way to develop myself. I get something and I try to implement it in the next few days. So, Alex, I think we need to start wrapping up here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I want to well, first of all, I had so many more questions for you, but the time has passed. So, let's start
Spiros,
wrapping up here.
as always, I tend to talk a lot. That's how it is.
Well, that's what I like having you here because you bring nice and interesting ideas, and I like the conversations. Anyway, we will
I
have more
appreciate it.
conversations on those topics maybe next few months. So
Hmm.
I want to ask you if someone wants to find out more about you or to ask you something. Where can people find you?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy that people who can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and you have my LinkedIn already, so I'm sure you'll make sure it's part of this recorded conversation. Yeah, LinkedIn will be the way to go. I have other social media which I do not use, and if you reach out on LinkedIn would be enough. Thank you.
Okay, okay. I will put your LinkedIn profile in the description of this video.
Yeah.
Uh, is there anything else you would like to share or say before we close?
I I do. I
Nice.
really, 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 really want to say big thank you to you, Spiros, not just for this lovely conversation we're having today and inviting me for it, but also for all the years that we've been close, and with all the talks we've had. It's been a long time, and I'm really looking forward to it. I want to have it in recording. I really want to have a one-on-one with you in face-to-face very soon.
Yeah. Welcome, Alex, and same here. I'm really looking forward to meet at some point
Yeah,
face to face after all these years.
it's been so long. Yeah, but thank
Yeah.
you so
Yeah.
much. I really appreciate you, man, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing. This is fantastic. All of our conversations have been sparked by your questions, and when you talk about the ideas that I have, it's part of a discussion that I had with you, some of them, and also the questions that you ask are not questions that I can ask myself, and I really appreciate talking to you for every time, every time.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. And thank you all for watching this awesome conversation about emotional intelligence and leadership. Have a lovely day or evening, and until next time, stay mindful, stay focused, and stay well.